The African savanna does not pause for miracles. Here, birth is not a beginning, it is a test. The moment life enters this world, it's already under threat. The air hangs heavy with dust and heat as the sun climbs above the acacia horizon, casting long shadows over the dry plains. In the tall golden grass, a wildebeest cow groans, muscles rippling in waves as she brings a new life into existence. Around her, the herd mills nervously, heads snap toward the horizon. Something is watching. The calf slips out in a slick mess of afterbirth and instinct. Its eyes are still foggy, its legs uncertain. But there's no grace period in the wild. Within 2 minutes it must rise, 3 minutes, and it must stand.
5 and it must run or die. That countdown isn't arbitrary.
It's wired into the DNA of prey species that evolved under pressure. A newborn that lingers becomes an offering to the predators that stalk the perimeter. Lions wait for opportunities exactly like this. A distracted mother, a motionless calf, a lapse in the herd's vigilance. Across the plains, spotted hyenas drift through the tall grass like ghosts, ears twitching. They don't need to see the birth. They smell it. Amniotic fluid, blood and stress hormones carried on the wind tell a story. A vulnerable calf is nearby. They adjust course. Time is ticking. Wildebeest calves are born ready to move. Their long limbs unfold like pocket knives, shaky but determined. This isn't learning. This is reaction. The mother nudges it, licks the slick off its fur in broad, urgent strokes. Its legs buckle, it falls, gets up again. By the 6th minute, it's trotting, and by 10, it's galloping beside its mother. For prey animals on open plains, mobility equals survival. Any delay in those first crucial minutes dramatically slashes survival odds. This is what evolutionary biologists call a precocial birth, offspring born relatively mature and mobile from the start. It's common among ungulates like gazelles, zebras, and giraffes. When there's no nest, no den, and no protection beyond numbers and speed, being born ready is the only option. Contrast this with the chaotic birth of sea turtles on a beach far across the world. The sand shifts as dozens of tiny heads emerge from the nest, eyes blinking against the starlight. No parents are there to greet them. In fact, there are no parents at all. Female sea turtles lay eggs and vanish into the surf, never seeing their offspring again. What happens next is pure instinct and pure slaughter. The hatchlings scramble toward the moonlit shimmer of the sea, a desperate dash across open sand. For some, the first few steps are their last. Shorebirds, crabs, and predatory fish lurk nearby, having learned the rhythms of nesting season. On some beaches, light pollution from nearby cities disorients the hatchlings, drawing them inland toward roads instead of water. Mortality rates in this gauntlet can exceed 90%. And yet the strategy works, not by saving individuals, but by playing the numbers. A single female may lay hundreds of eggs in her lifetime. If even a handful survive to adulthood, the lineage continues. This is the brutal math of our selection species. Produce many, invest little, accept high losses. It's the opposite of what we see in species that practice high parental care. Consider elephants. A mother elephant will carry her calf for 22 months, the longest gestation of any land animal. When the baby is born, it's nearly 250 pounds, and it doesn't stand alone. The entire herd forms a protective wall around it, trumpeting and gently guiding it with trunks and foreheads. They stay like this for hours, sometimes days. And for the next several years, the calf remains within this matriarchal fortress, shielded from lions, hyenas, and even human poachers. This strategy, K-selection in ecological terms, is slow and deliberate. Fewer offspring, more care. The stakes are higher for each individual. When an elephant calf dies, the loss resonates across the herd. Mourning behaviors have been observed, lingering, touching, even vocalizing in tones not used elsewhere. And yet, even in the best conditions, elephant calves are not guaranteed survival. Droughts, poaching, disease, and predation all chip away at that fragile promise of protection. In Arctic waters, a different kind of birth unfolds beneath the ice. A ringed seal gives birth inside a snow den, insulated from the biting wind. The pup is born blind, vulnerable, and entirely dependent. But the timing is everything, synchronized with the weakening of the sea ice so that by the time the pup can swim, the leads and cracks in the ice allow access to water and fish. Yet this strategy has a fatal flaw. It depends on snow cover that's becoming increasingly unreliable. In warmer years, polar bears locate the dens more easily, and without the snow's insulation, pups freeze before ever touching water. It is a sobering reminder that even finely tuned evolutionary systems can be undone by climate. Back on the savannah, the predators are evolving their strategies too. Lions in some regions have learned to target pregnant prey, females slowed by gestation. Others follow the migration cycles to time their hunts with mass births, turning calving season into a buffet. Cheetahs, who often raise cubs alone, must balance hunting with childcare.
Leave the cubs unattended, and they're stolen by hyenas or leopards.
Take them along and they're too slow, too noisy, too fragile. Some mothers cache their cubs in thorn thickets, relying on camouflage and silence. But even then, the odds are cruel. Most cheetah litters don't survive to adulthood. In tropical forests, sloths and monkeys give birth high in the canopy. A fall can be fatal, but the dense vegetation also provides cover from aerial predators. Here, protection isn't speed, but height and hiding. A howler monkey mother will cradle her newborn constantly, rarely letting go during the first weeks. In contrast, some frog species lay their eggs in pools of water in tree hollows, abandoning them immediately. The tadpoles that survive may cannibalize their siblings to grow faster, a form of intra-brood competition that ensures at least one might reach metamorphosis. What all of this reveals is that birth, in the wild, is not a hopeful beginning. It's the opening round in a constant evolutionary tournament, one with no audience, no second chances, and no mercy. Every species plays it differently. Some gamble with numbers, others gamble with protection, with brains, with location, with time. But the stakes never change. Life must justify its presence or be erased. The human mind often romanticizes the arrival of life. In nature, however, birth is a battlefield. The wild does not celebrate you. It tests you. And from the very first breath, the test begins. In the golden heat of the savannah, movement begins with silence. A lioness flattens herself against the parched earth, muscles tense beneath a coat dappled with dust. Her eyes are locked on a small herd of impala grazing unaware, their heads bobbing with rhythmic caution. A soft wind rustles the grass, masking her scent. Each paw step is measured, deliberate, barely stirring the soil. She's been tracking for over an hour. But all that time, all that patience, holds no guarantee. Because here in the wild, even perfection can end in nothing. When we imagine predators, we often think of them as inevitable forces, ruthless, efficient, and nearly always successful. But in truth, the life of a hunter is defined by failure. For every dramatic kill captured on camera, there are countless failed attempts, miscalculations, false starts, and empty returns. In most ecosystems, large predators fail far more often than they succeed. A lioness will miss her target up to 80% of the time. Cheetahs, despite their blinding speed, often lose their prize even after a direct hit, chased off by scavengers or outpaced by stamina. And in the ocean, even orcas, masters of cooperative hunting, find their quarry slipping through the cracks of teamwork. The lioness lunges. Her burst from cover is explosive, tail stiff, claws extended, but the impala are faster than she counted on. Their ears had caught a sound, a slight shuffle too early. They scatter in perfect unison, zigzagging through thorn bush and open plain. She chases, but the distance widens. Her breath grows heavy, and the chase ends with no blood, no meal, just the heavy thud of her paws slowing to a walk. She pants in the shade of a bush, ribs visible beneath the thin curtain of her fur. A failed hunt means more than hunger. It means burning calories with no return. Do this too many times in a row, and a predator risks a dangerous deficit, weakness, injury, death. Further south, the struggle takes a different shape. Along the dry riverbeds of the Kalahari, a solitary leopard climbs down from its tree at dusk. It's been 2 days since its last meal. The lean build that once made it efficient now works against it, ribs casting shadows against its spotted coat. Tonight, it stalks a porcupine. An unusual choice, but desperation bends judgment. With calculated speed, it closes the gap. The porcupine bristles, sensing the threat, quills raised like a fortress. The leopard pounces and misjudges. The quills drive deep into its foreleg. It limps back into the brush, not just hungry, but wounded. The barbed spine's impossible to remove without risk of infection. One mistake, and the balance tips. In the grasslands of East Africa, cheetahs face another enemy, exhaustion. Unlike other big cats, cheetahs rely on pure acceleration. A full-speed chase spikes their body temperature so rapidly that after 30 seconds, they must stop or risk overheating and collapse. When the chase is over, successful or not, the cheetah is temporarily paralyzed by exhaustion. If the kill is made, it still must guard it. And that's when the hyenas arrive. Drawn by the smell of blood and the sound of struggle, they close in with numbers. Even 2 or 3 hyenas are enough to force a cheetah to abandon its prize. The kill is lost. The calories are wasted. And unlike scavengers, cheetahs cannot afford to loiter. They must hunt again. Failure doesn't just drain energy. It carries consequences that compound. A missed kill today means weaker muscles tomorrow. An injury today means reduced odds on the next attempt. The predator's advantage, speed, strength, stealth, fades rapidly when hunger erodes the body. A lion with a limp is no longer a hunter, but a target. In nature, weakness invites death from all angles. Under the polar ice, another story unfolds. Orcas patrol the frigid waters of the Arctic, scanning the surface for seals resting on floes. One makes a move, a strategic rush toward a sheet of ice where a seal lies sleeping. The entire pod aligns. They dive and create a synchronized wave that topples the floe, sending the seal sliding into the water. But the seal anticipates, flinging itself in the other direction just in time, clawing at the shrinking edge of ice and scrambling to safety. The orcas circle but move on. Each coordinated attack is a risk of energy. Their strategy is sophisticated, one of the most intelligent in the animal kingdom, but intelligence doesn't promise success. Back on land, even group hunters aren't immune. Wild dogs are among the most successful hunters on the continent. Their coordination, endurance, and social cohesion make them formidable, but they are not infallible. A pack chasing a kudu may expend kilometers of energy, each member relying on the rhythm of relay-style pursuit. If one stumbles or breaks formation, the chase collapses. When they miss, the cost is shared by all. Pups at the den go hungry. Injured members go untreated. The pack's efficiency depends on momentum. Break that rhythm with a string of failures, and the unit dissolves into starvation and infighting. In tropical forests, predatory birds like harpy eagles stalk monkeys and sloths through the dense canopy. But trees create obstacles, unexpected branches, deceptive distances. A miscalculated strike can leave a talon fractured or wings clipped by unseen limbs. In dense foliage, even apex predators face the limits of visibility and reaction time. Every dive from the canopy carries risk. If the kill isn't clean, if the grip isn't perfect, the prey escapes, and the hunter bleeds energy it can't easily replace. What makes these failures more than setbacks is their cost within time. A predator cannot afford leisurely practice. Every failure is a mathematical subtraction, one step closer to depletion. But within failure lies adaptation. Young lions shadow their mothers for years before participating in a kill. They fail repeatedly before they learn. Cheetah cubs use play to simulate ambush, while wolf pups hone strategy through mock chases. Evolution has equipped predators with learning curves because their environment punishes ignorance brutally. Even insects, often ignored in discussions of hunting failure, provide rich insight. Praying mantises that misjudge their strikes lose limbs to their prey. Assassin bugs that miss their injection point leave themselves exposed. Nature's small-scale predators show that risk exists at all levels, scaled perfectly to size and species. The margin for error is never forgiving. Ultimately, what defines a successful predator is not constant victory, but resilience. The ability to miss and try again, to wound and still chase, to adapt and reattempt. A lioness that fails today will track again tomorrow, adjusting her angle, waiting longer in the grass, reading the wind more carefully. A leopard that wounds itself once may avoid porcupines forever. Evolution is a slow-burning lesson written in blood and hunger. Failure is not the opposite of survival in the wild. It is part of it. Every missed kill refines the predator. Every close escape educates the prey. Each failed hunt sharpens both sides of the blade. In this relentless cycle, no meal is promised. No strength is eternal. And the ones who endure are not those who never fall, but those who learn fastest how to get up. The savannah is always moving. Dust swirls in constant eddies behind columns of hooves as herds surge forward, not because they want to, but because they must. The grass is dry behind them. Predators tail their path, and water lies somewhere just beyond the shimmer of the horizon. Among the crowd, one shape lags. A young antelope calf stumbles, momentarily losing its mother in the blur of motion. Its breathing is uneven. Its legs wobble more than they should. The herd presses on, instinct outweighing sentiment. Survival doesn't allow for waiting. At the outer edge of the column, eyes track the straggler. A lioness, older and more experienced than her pridemates, lies concealed behind a termite mound, her tawny coat blending into the baked earth. Her head stays low, tail twitching only slightly. She's not watching the healthy. They're too costly. Instead, she watches the margins, where the sick move slower, the young fall behind, and the injured forget to hide their pain. This is where the easy kills are found. Not in a contest of strength, but in a calculation of risk. Nature favors economy. In the animal world, fitness is not about muscle alone. It's about timing, alertness, and being just fast enough to avoid drawing attention. The calf falters again, and now it's no longer a member of the herd in the lioness's mind. It's a separate unit, a vulnerable one. She signals with a flick of her ears. Two others rise from the grass, all moving in a slow flank around the calf's position. The chase is brief, the outcome certain. The kill is not heroic, it's clinical. This is the unspoken reality of survival. The herd protects through numbers, not compassion. When a member can no longer keep pace, there's no discussion, no hesitation. The majority moves on. To remain is to invite death. In this system, being left behind is not a failure of community. It's a function of it. The structure survives by discarding what no longer supports it. In the Arctic tundra, a similar story unfolds on a different scale. A wolf pack winds its way across the frozen landscape, their paws cutting shallow prints into the crusted snow. Among them, a grey male limps, his gait uneven from a fractured toe sustained during a chase weeks prior. He's not old, but in a world where stamina determines how much you eat, or if you eat at all, even a minor injury matters. For days he's trailed behind, arriving late to kills, eating only scraps. The rest of the pack no longer waits. Time and hunger drive their decisions. The injured male knows this. He still follows, not out of loyalty but out of hope that there's something left behind. Wolves are highly social animals, capable of remarkable coordination and even cooperation, but they are not sentimental. When an individual cannot contribute, the dynamic shifts, the group adapts. A weakened member isn't killed or attacked, just ignored, edged out, made invisible. Over time, the separation becomes permanent. Many lone wolves seen in the wild aren't wanderers by choice. They're remnants of former packs, outlasted by stronger kin, now forced to hunt alone or scavenge on the edge of territories not their own. The strategy of isolating the weak is not limited to large predators. Raptors such as golden eagles and secretary birds will track herds of rodents or small mammals across open grasslands, waiting for a juvenile or sick member to stray from the burrow network. A single moment of hesitation, an awkward leap, a slowed turn, and the bird drops like a blade from the sky. Here, speed is survival, but so is concealment. The moment an animal is exposed, its chance to escape shrinks dramatically. In tropical forests, predators like jaguars and pythons rely more on ambush than pursuit. Their selection of prey, however, still follows the same logic. In dense undergrowth, a monkey that fails to notice a broken twig may die not from speed but from attention deficit. A caiman that moves slower than the rest toward the riverbank is far more likely to be caught in a constrictor's coils. Even in static systems, movement tells a story, and predators read movement fluently. One might imagine that only predators benefit from such ruthless culling. But in fact, ecosystems as a whole depend on it. When diseased or genetically compromised animals are removed from the population, the health of the species is preserved. Predators serve this role without discrimination or malice. A lion doesn't know it's eliminating tuberculosis from a buffalo herd. It only knows that the slow buffalo is easier to catch. But the effect is the same. Genetic quality is shaped by death, not design. Even among prey animals themselves, there's no true safety in numbers if weakness is shown. In meerkat colonies, for instance, individuals that show signs of sickness may be cast out or killed, not just to prevent disease spread, but because survival demands efficiency. In harsh desert environments, every extra mouth matters. Social insects take this concept even further. Ants will carry away or even dismember infected nestmates to protect the colony's core. The individual has no value apart from its function. In rare cases, a species breaks the rule, but only briefly. Elephants, with their complex emotional lives, will sometimes circle a wounded or dying calf, attempting to help it stand, even lifting it with their trunks. But this behavior, though poignant, usually ends the same way. Eventually, the matriarch must decide. The herd moves on, the calf is left, mourning happens, but the march continues. The plains are not paused by grief. There's no nobility in being the slowest, and yet the slow, the sick, the small, they are essential to the story of evolution. They are the reason speed exists at all. The pressure to survive carves traits sharper than any knife. An antelope that sees its sibling fall behind learns to run faster. A wolf pup that sees its uncle vanish learns to endure longer. Every loss leaves a genetic imprint, not in the fallen, but in the ones who continue. The wild does not look back. It doesn't apologize or question. It corrects, harshly, efficiently, constantly. And in that correction, life finds its shape, not by lifting the weak, but by running faster than them. The air carries weight in the savannah just before a storm, dense, restless, bristling with tension. In the distance, two young male lions move in tandem, their golden coats dulled by dust, manes fuller than last season, shoulders thickened from months of feasting and fighting. They walk without haste, but their presence disturbs the rhythm of the plains. Birds go quiet, antelope lift their heads, but they are not hunting prey today. They are hunting power. Further ahead, lounging beneath the sparse shade of an acacia tree, the reigning male of this territory sleeps. His ears twitch at the hum of flies. One of his eyes is half open, the other swollen from a recent fight. His mane is dark but thinning. Scars line his muzzle like a worn road map of old battles. Once, he would have risen at the first scent of rival males. Now, he hesitates. It is not fear, it is fatigue. The kind that builds quietly over years, one challenge at a time. The kind that lingers. Power in the wild is not bestowed, it is taken. And once taken, it must be defended again and again. A Lion King's reign is defined not just by dominance, but by endurance. The average tenure of a dominant male rarely exceeds 3 years. Some hold on longer, most don't. The very traits that make a male successful, aggression, size, intimidation, also draw attention. And that attention arrives eventually, with claws. As the rivals approach, the pride shifts. Lionesses rise from the grass with a mix of alertness and recognition. They've seen this before. They have no loyalty to the male who rules, only to the protection he provides. If he cannot defend the cubs or the kill, he is no longer useful. And the moment he is no longer useful, he is alone. The battle is quick, brutal, and decisive. Dust explodes around the clash of bodies. Roars break the stillness. The old king manages a few powerful swipes, but his speed betrays him. The younger males work in coordination, one from the flank, the other at his throat. Within minutes he is bleeding and retreating. There will be no final stand, no ceremonial exile, just distance and the fading sound of his growl. Elsewhere in the highlands of Ethiopia, a far more structured but equally fragile hierarchy trembles. A troop of gelada baboons moves across rocky slopes, the alpha male at the front, flanked by females who groom and feed under his protection. His chest patch, a bright red hourglass shape, is vibrant, signaling health and dominance. But just behind him, in the periphery of the troop, a younger male watches. His patch is duller, his fangs less worn, but his eyes follow the leader with focus. Every pause, every cough, every hesitation is a signal. A challenge will come, not today, but soon. In primate societies, especially those built on intricate social contracts, overthrows are rarely sudden. They are tested. The dominant male must constantly assert control through vocal displays, posturing, and the strategic use of allies. But age weakens more than muscle. It weakens presence. It weakens fear. Once the fear fades, so does rule. When the challenger finally moves, it begins with a scream and ends with a chase. The alpha flees, leaving behind not just his status, but access to mates, food, and shelter. The new leader wastes no time asserting dominance, and in the absence of titles or trophies, this is done biologically, by mating, guarding, and sometimes killing the offspring of the former alpha to erase his legacy. Power collapses differently in matriarchal societies. In the wide, open floodplains of the Okavango, a herd of elephants moves in single file. At the front is the matriarch, old, experienced, and steady. Her ears are torn from decades of bramble, her tusks chipped from years of digging waterholes. She leads not through force, but through memory, a living archive of migration routes, safe crossings, and hidden food sources. The herd depends on her decisions. But this season, her choices falter. A drought has shifted the riverbeds. Her traditional path leads to dry ground. The younger females hesitate, their calves thirsty and restless. Elephant overthrows are not violent, but they are absolute. Another female, younger, perhaps her niece, steps forward. She changes direction, and the others follow. It happens without confrontation, but the message is unmistakable. The matriarch is still part of the herd, still respected, but no longer followed. Power has passed silently, almost kindly, but it has passed. And in a world of memory and movement, leadership that leads nowhere loses its claim. In the forests of North America, grey wolves navigate a more rigid hierarchy. Packs are ruled by an alpha pair, typically the only ones to breed. Their authority is enforced not through tyranny, but through cohesion. The pack functions best when order is clear. But over time, even wolves must reckon with change. An aging alpha male who falters in hunts or shows weakness may face rebellion not from outsiders, but from within. A strong subordinate, often a son, may challenge. The confrontation is fast and intense. If the alpha concedes, he is driven out, left to wander as a lone wolf. If he doesn't, he risks death. But even a victorious subordinate faces uncertainty. The shift destabilizes the pack, disrupts the hunting rhythm, and may fracture the group entirely. Power gained too early is often short-lived. There are species where the fall from power carries more than personal cost. In hyena clans, females rule. The matriarch maintains dominance through aggression, alliances, and the sheer force of personality. When she weakens, through age or injury, her daughters begin testing limits. Snarls last longer. Food is taken without apology. Eventually one lashes out. The matriarch, now frail, doesn't retaliate, and the clan knows. Her scent fades from top priority. Her place at the carcass disappears. The new leader ascends not just by biology, but by consensus. Even in the ocean, overthrows unfold with ruthless precision. Among bottlenose dolphins, males form coalitions to court and guard females. These alliances are built on complex trust and manipulation. But the moment one male shows weakness, a wound, an illness, hesitation, the group shifts. He is outmaneuvered, pushed to the fringe. The sea is vast, but isolation is lethal. Power at sea is fluid, and loyalty drifts quickly. Power is not a permanent possession. It is a position that must be re-earned constantly. And the wild offers no retirement plan. The fall of a leader is not marked by ceremony, only by silence, absence, or blood. There is no inheritance, no crown passed down. Each generation must claw its own way forward. For the predators and prey alike, leadership offers no safety, only exposure. The wild does not venerate the past. It replaces it, swiftly, efficiently, and without regret. In a system built on survival, even the mighty must prove their worth every day, or be replaced by those who can. Stillness is rarely innocent in nature. In fact, when a creature does not move, when it appears part of the landscape itself, it often means something is watching, not to admire, but to ambush. Across the animal kingdom, predators have learned that speed isn't always the winning strategy. In a world where energy is scarce and mistakes are costly, the most efficient killers are sometimes the ones that don't move at all. They don't chase, they don't roar, they don't even breathe too loudly. They disappear and wait. Under the canopy of a Southeast Asian forest, a leaf sits motionless on a branch, curled slightly at the edge. To the untrained eye, it is unremarkable, one of thousands of similar shapes littering the jungle's dense green architecture. But under the lens of close observation, the leaf tilts slightly, following the jittery movement of a fly just inches away. It's not a leaf. It's an orchid mantis, a master of mimicry. Its body evolved to replicate both the color and form of decaying foliage and blooming flowers, depending on the stage of ambush. As the fly lands nearby, there's no warning, no chase. The mantis simply pivots, its forelimbs lashing out like a mousetrap. The fly doesn't escape. It never had the chance to recognize what it was walking into. This method of predation, known as aggressive mimicry, is less about pursuit and more about patience. The hunter becomes the environment, manipulating the instincts of its prey. Insect vision, for all its complexity, often relies on motion and contrast. Remove those, and recognition systems fail. Many ambush predators capitalize on this exact limitation. A well-hidden spider doesn't need to outrun its prey. It simply needs to let the prey come close enough to forget it's in danger. In the scrublands of Australia, the soil appears undisturbed, compacted, dotted with fallen twigs, ordinary in every way. But beneath one patch, a thin, silken door is cracked slightly open. This is the lair of the trapdoor spider. The door, lined with bits of moss and grit, blends seamlessly into the earth. Inside, the spider waits, sometimes for days. It feels vibrations more than it sees, the tremor of a beetle's legs across the dirt, registering like thunder on a drum. When the moment comes, the door explodes upward, the spider striking with pinpoint speed, dragging its victim below before the surface has time to remember what disturbed it. What makes these predators especially dangerous is their economy. They expend almost no energy until the strike. Unlike lions, who can burn thousands of calories in a single failed chase, orcas coordinating complex attacks, ambush predators deal only in certainty. They don't risk the kill unless they're sure. This gives them incredible efficiency, and in environments where resources are unpredictable, efficiency is survival. In the coral reefs of the Indo-Pacific, illusion hides in plain sight. The stonefish, named for its uncanny resemblance to algae-covered rocks, rests on the ocean floor without a flicker of motion. Its textured skin mimics coral rubble so precisely that even experienced divers have stepped directly onto them, often with disastrous results. Because this fish is not just hidden, it's venomous. Along its dorsal spine are a series of hypodermic-like needles capable of delivering one of the most painful neurotoxins known to man. For prey like small fish or crustaceans, the illusion is fatal. As they meander close, lulled by what looks like inert terrain, the stonefish opens its cavernous mouth in a fraction of a second, creating a vacuum that swallows its meal whole. No chew, no struggle, just vanishing. Camouflage is not limited to small, patient hunters. Even apex predators use stillness to gain an edge. Jaguars, often thought of as brute force hunters, frequently employ ambush tactics, especially in the thick cover of rainforests. Their dappled coats break up their outline in the mottled light of the forest floor, allowing them to blend seamlessly into the undergrowth. They move not with stealth, but with complete silence. In many attacks, the prey never sees the jaguar, only feels the jaws closing around its skull. This approach is especially vital in the jungle, where visibility is limited and short ambushes are more successful than extended pursuits. In the grasslands and woodlands of North America, the eastern screech owl employs one of the most deceptive stillnesses in the animal kingdom. When perched against a tree trunk, its feather patterns align with the bark so perfectly that even during daylight, it becomes indistinguishable. It flattens its body, narrows its eyes, and elongates its posture to match the vertical grain. To birds and rodents below, it simply doesn't exist. But at dusk, when it moves, it does so with purpose. A dive from above, claws forward, no sound. And the mouse is gone before the grass knows it was disturbed. Ambush doesn't always involve aggressive mimicry. Sometimes it's about behavioral traps. Alligator snapping turtles sit at the bottom of rivers, mouths wide open, tongues wriggling like worms. Fish mistake the tongue for food and dart in, only to find themselves on the wrong end of a jaw designed to crush bone in an instant. This is predation by suggestion, not tricking the eyes but the mind. The turtle doesn't pursue the fish. It simply lets the fish make a mistake. Even plants have joined the deception game. The Venus flytrap and pitcher plant lure insects with color and sweet scent, only to trap and digest them alive. Though not predators in the animal sense, they are proof that nature's drive for efficiency transcends categories. Wherever energy can be stolen instead of earned, nature will evolve a thief. There's a deeper irony to this evolutionary strategy. Many of these deceptive hunters rely on their prey's sense of safety, the routine of grazing, the confidence in camouflage, the comfort of familiarity. The mantis succeeds because flowers are everywhere. The spider thrives because soil is unthreatening. The snapping turtle kills because fish believe in the harmlessness of movement. Trust in this context is not an emotion but a biological shortcut, one that is exploited with brutal consistency. Ambush predators are not defined by their strength, speed, or dominance. They are defined by their ability to disappear, to erase their presence so completely that their existence is only confirmed after the strike. In ecosystems where movement draws attention and energy comes at a premium, stillness becomes the deadliest form of action. This chapter of nature operates in silence, beneath leaves, under rocks, behind shadows. It reminds us that survival isn't always about the loudest roar or the fastest sprint. Sometimes it's about being mistaken for nothing until it's too late. The land can kill without lifting a claw. No teeth are needed when the air itself betrays its inhabitants. In the wild, most deaths are expected. The swift strike of a predator, the slow fade of starvation, the misstep that draws attention from the wrong set of eyes. But sometimes the enemy has no face. As sometimes survival is undone not by a hunt but by a shift, in temperature, in wind, in rain. The weather does not choose victims, it claims them with indifference. In the blistering heart of the African dry season, a dust haze hangs like gauze across the horizon. The earth has cracked under weeks of unrelenting sun. Mud holes have become dustpans, and once flowing rivers are now shallow scars in the land. At the edge of a dwindling waterhole, elephants stand shoulder to shoulder, the largest matriarchs shielding calves from the jostling of desperate bulls. Trunks probe the dry air, sniffing for water vapor that isn't there. Beneath them, the mud has turned to hot clay. In the center of the shrinking pool lies a dead hippo, half submerged in its own grave. The stench draws scavengers, but even vultures hesitate. The heat threatens their wings if they stay airborne too long. In years with normal rainfall, these herds would be miles away, following ancient migratory paths toward distant feeding grounds. But the rains arrived late and ended early. The few scattered trees still standing have been stripped of bark and leaves. Elephants, which can drink over 50 gallons of water a day, begin to falter. Calves collapse first. Unlike adult bulls, they lack the endurance to survive long stretches without hydration. When they fall, there is no drama, only silence. A soft slump into dust, eyes dulling in the heat. Their mothers stay for hours, circling, nudging, waiting for motion that never returns. Eventually they move on. The herd must continue. In these conditions, mourning is a luxury. Elsewhere, in the highland forests of South America, the problem is the opposite. A sudden cold front rolls in from the Andes, plunging the temperature overnight. Capuchin monkeys, adapted to humidity and warmth, shiver in clumps on rain-slick branches. Their fur, made for ventilation more than insulation, is soaked through. They press together for warmth, but the oldest and youngest begin to stiffen. Insects vanish, frogs fall silent, and fruit-bearing plants pause growth. It takes only 2 nights for malnutrition to set in. These cold snaps are becoming more frequent, irregular anomalies that disrupt the feeding calendar. In response, some troops descend from the canopy, searching for lowland warmth. But there they meet unfamiliar predators and human settlements. A few individuals take shelter in abandoned huts or rotted tree stumps. Others do not make it to morning. The jungle, usually dense with life, grows quiet in the frost. Temperature fluctuations do not need to last long to leave scars. For tropical species, even a short deviation from their thermal comfort zone can mean death. Above the cliffs of the North Atlantic, the wind begins to shift. Gannets, built for ocean dives and high-altitude glides, wheel in tight arcs as storm clouds boil in from the sea. The sky darkens with an unnatural speed. Gusts whip across the nesting ledges, sending clutches of eggs tumbling into the surf below. Some birds cling to rock with talons and desperation, but others, fledglings and the old, are ripped from the cliffs by invisible fingers of wind. They spin wildly into the storm, wings battered until muscles fail. Some crash into the waves, others disappear beyond the curtain of rain. Not all deaths here are visible. Some vanish quietly, never seen again. Storms this intense used to be seasonal. Now they strike out of rhythm, destabilizing nesting timelines and migration queues. Entire colonies can be set back by one event. Breeding windows close before hatchlings can fledge. Even for birds evolved to live with the ocean's moods, the new pace of change is unforgiving. In the dense floodplains of Southeast Asia, monsoon season brings its own set of dangers. Frogs sing for mates as the first rains fall, triggering a chain of birth and rebirth. But then the waters rise too fast. Villages disappear beneath the current. So do burrows and nests. Monitor lizards flee to high ground, while small mammals are caught in underground chambers that flood before they can escape. Pangolins, slow and solitary, are particularly vulnerable. They do not swim well. When the water comes, it does so without pause. Trees become islands, then vanish. Those who climb survive. Those who hesitate drown. Flash floods like these are no longer rare. With upstream deforestation and urban expansion altering watershed dynamics, water now moves faster and less predictably. In nature's oldest forests, where the timing of rain once dictated every movement, the rules have shifted. The wildlife hasn't caught up. In the deserts of the American Southwest, wildfire season arrives with firestorms that leap canyons and outrun deer. Jackrabbits and roadrunners bolt through scrub, dodging tongues of flame that move faster than a man can run. Tortoises, unable to flee, retreat into burrows, sometimes safe, sometimes not. The fires are hotter now, their fuel richer after years of altered rainfall patterns that left grasses high and dry. Coyotes howl in confusion as the familiar landmarks vanish in smoke. Raptors circle above blackened earth, drawn by the promise of charred carrion. Some species return after fire, others don't. The balance that once allowed cycles of burn and regrowth is fraying. Trees that took centuries to grow are gone in hours. Buried seeds do not sprout. For animals that rely on specific territories, mating grounds, den sites, seasonal plants, fire now means permanent displacement. Across all these environments, forest, savanna, reef, tundra, a growing constant emerges: randomness. The weather no longer follows the rhythms of the past. And while some animals can adapt, many are tightly bound to narrow ecological niches. A coral reef bleached by heat leaves clownfish without anemones. A glacier melting too soon exposes polar bear dens before cubs are ready. A sudden drought means the grasses never reach the height needed for wildebeest calves to hide. There are no villains in weather, no intent, but the effects mimic the sharpest predator. Animals suffer not because they are weak, but because the world around them has changed faster than their biology can respond. Evolution works in slow increments. Climate shifts in leaps now. The result is visible in every corner of the wild. Bones bleaching in empty lake beds, carcasses frozen beneath early snow, nests washed away by surprise tides. Predators kill with intent. The weather kills with indifference. And in this new era, indifference is becoming the more lethal force. Survival now demands not just strength, but flexibility. The ability to read a changing world and move before it strikes. Not all species can do that, and the margin of error is closing. Even the strong suffer when the wind turns. The tide has just begun to recede from the coral-fringed coast of Sulawesi. In the shallows, rock pools shimmer with trapped life. Fish, crabs, sea urchins, and something harder to notice. A glob of mottled flesh squeezes through a crack between two stones, slips beneath a film of seaweed, and halts, motionless. It's not a stone, it's not algae. It's an octopus, and it is watching. An approaching crab scuttles near the edge of the pool, unaware of the shifting predator nearby. Then a sudden surge of movement, not brute force, but choreography. Tentacles curl forward, the siphon jets a burst of water for momentum, and the ambush is complete. But catching prey is only half the story. Hours earlier, the same octopus was inside a glass jar, a trap set by a local fisher. From inside, it had felt the threads of the screw-top lid, studied the light patterns leaking through the sides. Unlike most animals, the octopus had the dexterity and problem-solving ability to manipulate the lid from inside, slowly turning its soft body against the threading. It escaped not with strength, but with memory. And that's not an isolated event. Octopuses are known to unscrew lids, recognize individual human handlers, and even redecorate their dens with discarded objects. In an ocean ruled by jaws and speed, this soft-bodied creature survives with calculation. In the Namib Desert, a very different kind of intelligence plays out under open sky. Meerkats, no taller than a squirrel, face a world filled with threats. Snakes underground, jackals on foot, and birds of prey above. Alone, they would be easy targets. But intelligence doesn't always come from individual cognition. Sometimes it emerges from collective strategy. The meerkat mob functions like a nervous system. At any given moment, one or more individuals act as sentinels, perched upright on mounds or branches, scanning the sky with twitching heads. Their warning calls are precise, even categorized. A sharp bark for aerial danger, a series of chirps for land-based threats. When the alarm sounds, the entire colony reacts instantly. Foragers drop their insects and vanish into burrows. Pups follow without hesitation. The sentinel stays exposed the longest, ensuring the group has vanished before ducking underground. This division of labor and risk creates a buffer of security without brute power. It's a survival tactic rooted in awareness, not aggression. In the snowy boreal forests of Canada, ravens display a different brand of intelligence. A pack of wolves tears into a fresh elk carcass, their growls and the crack of bone echoing through the trees. High above, black silhouettes circle, watching with uncanny precision. Ravens don't kill their own meals, but they know exactly how to steal from those who do. As the wolves feed, the ravens wait. They don't dive in immediately, they test reactions. They study the hierarchy. Which wolves dominate, which ones scare easily, who leave scraps behind. When the moment comes, the ravens descend in pairs. One distracts a wolf from the front, hopping just close enough to draw attention. The other swoops from behind, ripping a strip of fat from the edge of the carcass and lifting off before the teeth catch up. This level of coordination isn't instinctual. It's learned and adapted. Ravens remember past successes. They recognize individual wolves and change their approach depending on who is present. In fact, studies show that ravens can plan for future events, hide food in secret locations while checking to see if they're being watched, and even feign disinterest to throw off rivals. In a land of predators, their edge is psychological warfare. Teamwork as a form of intelligence takes more elaborate shape in the African savanna. Lions may rely on muscle, but African wild dogs, smaller, leaner, and more exposed, rely on tactics. A pack of wild dogs approaches a herd of impala in silence. They do not charge as a unit, but fan out in a crescent formation, testing the herd's movement. The lead dog signals with a twitch of its tail. A target has been selected. The pack surges, not in a frenzied rush, but in a staggered relay. Dogs peel off and rejoin, rotating positions to maintain pressure without exhausting themselves. They cut off escape routes, redirect movement, and eventually drive the prey into collapse. What's remarkable is how precise their movements are, and how consistent the success rate becomes. Wild dogs have one of the highest hunting success rates of any terrestrial predator, often exceeding 70%. They do this not by overpowering prey, but by planning routes, anticipating reactions, and sharing roles. And when the kill is made, they feed cooperatively, ensuring even pups and injured members eat. Intelligence in this case is embedded in the structure of the group. Among primates, brains are an evolutionary arms race. But not all intelligent behavior involves tool use or complex gestures. In the mountain forests of Uganda, chimpanzees prepare for conflict days in advance. Before launching a raid on a neighboring troop's territory, they patrol the edges in silence, testing for weakness. Older individuals often lead, but younger males scout and relay information. The group communicates through subtle cues, body orientation, posture, breathing. If the advantage is clear, they strike. If not, they retreat. These raids are not impulsive. They're calculated and sometimes revisited over time, as if learning from past encounters. The goal is not always death. It is territory, dominance, and deterrence, outcomes usually associated with human warfare. But perhaps the most disarming display of survival through intelligence happens on a smaller scale. In the forests of New Caledonia, a crow hovers above a tree limb holding a stick. But it's not just any stick. It's one the crow has selected, trimmed, and shaped into a hook. Below the branch lies a small grub, hidden deep inside a hollow. The crow probes, twists, and plucks it free with astonishing dexterity. This isn't mimicry or coincidence, it's innovation. These crows don't just use tools, they manufacture them, and they teach this skill to their young. Tool use in animals is rare, but among certain birds and primates, it's a direct path to food that would otherwise be inaccessible. It allows them to access new ecological niches, widening their range of survival. But it also hints at a mental flexibility most animals don't possess. The ability to understand cause and effect, to imagine solutions to problems never faced before. In nature, intelligence doesn't always come with fanfare. It is quiet, strategic, sometimes invisible to casual observers. It hides behind coordination, behind problem-solving, behind patience. And when measured in evolutionary terms, it becomes a powerful weapon. Because in the wild, size is an advantage only when it works. Speed matters only when it's applied well. But intelligence rewrites the rules entirely. It allows a bird to outwit a predator, a cephalopod to escape a sealed trap, a mammal to plan its own future. In a world that punishes hesitation, thought becomes the sharpest blade. And for those without claws or fangs, thought may be the only way to live another day. The sun hovers low over the savannah, casting elongated shadows that ripple across the dry grass like brushstrokes on canvas. A herd of elephants move steadily across the landscape, slow and deliberate, their footsteps nearly soundless despite their size. Dust clings to the folds in their skin. Calves press close to their mother's legs, shielded not just by muscle but by memory, passed down through matriarchal guidance, generations deep. At the center of this formation, one female lingers. She stands over a collapsed body, another elephant unmoving. Her trunk roves across the body's side, gently curling around the tusks. She does not move for hours. What looks like mourning is not imagined. Elephants have been observed revisiting the bones of the dead, especially those from their own herd. They investigate with trunk and foot, linger at the site, and display behavioral shifts, quietness, lowered heads, a pause in migration. When a calf dies, mothers often refuse to leave immediately. They wait, they circle. Some even attempt to lift the body, as though disbelief delays reality. But this hesitation comes with a cost. Remaining in one place for too long exposes the herd to threat, from predators, from dehydration, from losing the rhythm of movement that sustains their survival. Still, they risk it, because for elephants, memory is more than just navigation. It's emotional scaffolding. Empathy is not exclusive to humans. In the dense forests of West Africa, a chimpanzee troop gathers in uneasy silence around an injured juvenile. His leg has been broken in a fall, perhaps from a failed leap across the canopy. He cannot walk. One adult, an older female, not his mother, returns again and again with fruit. She waits as he eats, then moves on. Others avoid him. Some glance with momentary concern, but they do not linger. Eventually, the troop begins to move again. The injured juvenile struggles to follow. The older female stays. But by the second day, the rest of the troop is too far ahead to rejoin. Predators now patrol the lower canopy. She cannot protect him from everything. Eventually, she leaves. The bond snaps under the weight of risk. In social animals, empathy emerges not from sentimentality, but from evolutionary benefit. Groups function better when cohesion is strong, when individuals are willing to help the injured, share food, raise each other's young. Primates with higher social intelligence tend to have larger brain-to-body ratios and longer childhoods. But such emotional sensitivity is double-edged. Every moment spent caring for the weak is a moment not spent securing one's own survival. Predators exploit this hesitation. On the banks of the Mara River, a zebra mare stands guard beside a foal that cannot stand. Its legs are splayed unnaturally, a possible injury from the crossing. The herd has already moved on. Wildebeest and zebras churn the far side of the river into mud as they press forward toward the grasslands. The mare whinnies, nudges the foal, then scans the tree line. Lions have been trailing the migration for days. They know what this posture means: isolation, weakness, opportunity. The lioness emerges from the grass not in a charge, but in a walk. She doesn't need to run. The mare places herself between the predator and the foal. For a brief moment, she holds. But lions don't hesitate, and the calculation is cruel. The foal is taken first. The mare escapes, but not unscathed. The next morning, she limps to rejoin the herd, alone trailing blood. Parental care is common in mammals, birds, and some fish. In penguin colonies, for example, parents take turns guarding eggs against the bitter Antarctic cold while the other forages. But if one fails to return, the other often faces a grim decision: remain and starve with the chick, or abandon the egg to save themselves. Even among species where cooperation is vital, self-preservation eventually asserts itself. Compassion, when stretched to its limits, must yield to the laws of biology. In certain cases, mercy leads to group-wide danger. In spotted hyena clans, dominance is rigid. When a lower-ranking female attempts to raise a weak pup, higher-ranking females may kill the pup to eliminate competition. The act is brutal, but from an evolutionary standpoint, it prevents resource strain. Food is limited. Weak offspring may slow down the group. In hyenas, cruelty is structured into the social order, an unflinching system that prioritizes survival over sentiment. Yet not all species are so harsh. In bonobo communities, infants orphaned by illness or predation are sometimes adopted by unrelated adults, including males. These adoptions require substantial investment, food sharing, grooming, even defending the infant during disputes. In the wild, this is costly, but in bonobos, this behavior reinforces bonds and may increase the adopter's social standing. The evolutionary reward is indirect, less about immediate survival and more about long-term access to allies and mates. Corvids, birds like crows and ravens, also show unexpected emotional behaviors. In one recorded observation, a crow approached a dead member of its flock and spent several minutes nudging the body, vocalizing softly. Others gathered in what could only be described as a circle, silent and still. Then they dispersed. Moments like these raise questions about whether these animals understand death or simply respond to the absence of movement. Regardless, the pause is there. The interruption in survival routine, and that interruption could be fatal if a predator were watching. This blurring of empathy and exposure raises a central question in evolutionary biology. Can kindness survive in a world that punishes weakness? The answer is complex. In some species, acts of care strengthen group resilience. In others, it's a liability that must be constrained. Compassion exists not as a dominant trait, but as a conditional one, permitted only when it does not threaten the system that supports it. Nature doesn't condemn mercy, but it doesn't protect it either. When a dolphin supports a dying podmate near the surface, it's expending precious energy. When a bird continues to feed a fledgling days after it should have flown, it risks starvation. These choices are not mistakes. They're experiments written into the living blueprint of survival. Most are abandoned before they can become dangerous. Some are repeated across generations, and a few become tradition. But mercy in its purest form is always a gamble. A mother who stays too long with her dead calf, a primate who shares food with a rival, a whale who pushes a dying newborn toward the surface long after the heartbeat has stopped. These actions are not strategies. They are expressions of memory, attachment, a kind of understanding that science still struggles to measure. And in the end, perhaps the wild doesn't punish compassion, it simply ignores it. There are no rewards for kindness, no protection from the laws of hunger, weather, or time. Yet despite that indifference, some animals still pause, still stay, still care, not because it helps them survive, but because, in that moment, it's the only thing they know how to do. The jaguar moves without a sound. His rosette-marked coat melts into the undergrowth as effortlessly as wind passing through grass. His muscles ripple beneath the dappled light of the canopy, each step calculated, silent, and full of coiled tension. He stalks the river's edge in the Pantanal wetlands, where capybaras and caimans share the muddy banks. To most animals here, the jaguar is a phantom, the last thing seen before the world fades to black. His jaws, stronger pound for pound than any other cat, are designed not to choke, but to pierce skulls and snap necks. Here, he is king. But kings fall too. Just beyond the rushes, the surface of the river seems calm. A few bubbles rise, nothing more. The jaguar pauses. His eyes scan the water. He's done this many times. The caiman he's been tracking is basking, vulnerable. He lowers himself into a crouch. In one leap, he hits the riverbank, claws digging into slick mud, jaws aimed at the reptile's nape. It should be over. But this time it's not. A second caiman, submerged and unseen, erupts from the water like a missile. Its jaws clamp down on the jaguar's midsection with staggering force. The cat thrashes, claws slicing into air and scales. But the angle is wrong. The predator is pulled into the water. There's no scream, just a frothing explosion of mud and bubbles. Then stillness. Nature does not discriminate. Apex status does not include immunity. Across the African plains, the sun scorches the savanna as a pride of lions shadows a herd of Cape buffalo. These are not the old, tired targets preferred by the pride. This herd is strong, bulls in peak condition, calves well defended. But hunger dulls caution. A young male lion, eager to prove his value, circles the herd with growing confidence. He charges, a feint perhaps, and the herd scatters, all but one. A bull, massive and battle-scarred, does not run. He turns. The lion hesitates, a moment too long. The buffalo charges, his bulk crashing forward in a blur of muscle and horn. The lion leaps, but the horn catches him mid-air, goring through his shoulder and flinging him backward like a broken doll. The pride watches from a distance, unwilling to interfere. The lion rises once, stumbles, then collapses. This time, the meal will belong to vultures. Not even the strongest predator survives a miscalculation this violent. The notion of apex predator implies control, dominance over an ecosystem, the final link in the food chain. But in truth, that link frays under pressure. Predators are not invincible. They are often solitary, exposed, and heavily reliant on the balance between risk and reward. When that balance tips, death comes as swiftly for them as it does for their prey. In the Arctic seas, the orca reigns supreme. Fast, intelligent, and armed with coordinated tactics, these whales are the apex of the marine food pyramid, but their power has limits. One pod off the coast of Greenland chased a minke whale for hours, finally dragging it into a fjord to feed. What they didn't notice was the scent trail. It spread for miles. 2 great white sharks, unusually far north, arrived by evening. The orcas had fed well, but one lingered too long, blood still in the water. As the carcass drifted, a shark struck. Not a frenzied attack, but a precise bite to the side, targeting the soft underbelly. The orca, surprised and injured, thrashed wildly. A second shark joined. The pod returned, but confusion fractured their defense. The orca survived, barely, but the wound became infected. It washed ashore days later. Marine biologists recorded deep lacerations, not consistent with boat strikes. Predation by other predators. Rare, but not impossible. Even in the ocean's most dominant family, a moment of vulnerability can turn the hunter into carrion. In the dry valleys of India's Gir forest, a leopard prowls the outskirts of a village at dusk. It has learned the rhythms of human activity, when trash is discarded, when goats are corralled. Intelligence has kept it alive in a human-dominated world. But the more a predator adapts to encroach on civilization, the more exposed it becomes. This one miscalculates. A startled group of feral dogs responds not with fear but with aggression. These are not pets. They are territorial, violent, and outnumber the leopard 10 to 1. The ambush is chaotic. The leopard wounds several dogs, but the tide turns with sheer volume, biting, dragging, harrying. It climbs a low tree but slips. Claws worn down from concrete terrain. The pack overwhelms it. Locals find the carcass the next morning, sprawled in blood and dust. There is no natural dignity in death, only consequence. These stories don't only belong to mammals. In the deserts of Australia, a venomous brown snake coils under the shade of a rock, waiting for a lizard or rodent. But what approaches is not prey. It's a monitor lizard. Larger, armored, with a tongue flicking steadily, the lizard senses the snake before the strike. It lunges, jaws clamping behind the snake's head before the venom can be deployed. The struggle is brief. The predator becomes protein. In ecosystems where size and venom are not guarantees, speed of reaction, and who sees whom first, makes the only difference. Even birds of prey, revered for their dominance of the skies, are not immune. A golden eagle hunting marmots in Mongolia misjudges a ridge updraft. As it dives, a smaller but territorial sarcofalcon attacks from above, not in defense of a meal, but in defense of airspace. The eagle is struck mid-flight, its wing clipped. It spirals into rock and dies not from combat, but from the ground. Air superiority means nothing when gravity intervenes. There's a quiet lesson buried beneath these dramatic reversals. Evolution does not favor the powerful forever. It rewards adaptability, timing, caution, and sometimes luck. An apex predator remains on top only as long as everything goes right. The terrain favors them. The prey missteps, no rival appears. But nature, ever indifferent, is built on contingency. A moment of arrogance, a false sense of control, and the line between hunter and hunted vanishes. And so the myth of untouchability dissolves. A lion can be outmaneuvered, a shark can be outnumbered, an orca can be wounded, a leopard can be torn apart. Apex predators are not gods of their domain. They are players just like every other organism, vulnerable, fallible, mortal. In this world, power is temporary and dominance is never guaranteed. Even the top must fall. The story of life is not one of triumph but of endurance. The wild does not reward the strongest, nor the fastest, nor even the most intelligent. It rewards those who change. In the grand experiment of evolution, survival belongs to those who adapt, who bend, who shift, who rewrite their biology when the world demands it. Those who do not, vanish. On the island of Mauritius, the forest canopy once echoed with the shuffling gait of a bird too large to fly and too slow to flee. The dodo, a flightless pigeon nearly a meter tall, thrived for centuries in a world without predators. It nested on the ground, foraged freely, and feared little. But when humans arrived with rats, pigs, and a hunger for novelty, the dodo's fate was sealed. It had no defenses, no strategies for flight or fight. In less than a century, it was gone. Not because it was weak, but because it was unprepared for change. Evolution had made it perfectly suited to a stable island and catastrophically unsuited for invasion. The thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger, followed a similar arc. A marsupial predator that once ruled the forests of Australia, it became the target of eradication campaigns when sheep farming took over the land. Despite its fierce jaws and solitary hunting prowess, the thylacine could not compete with dogs, guns, and human expansion. Its low reproductive rate and specialized niche left no margin for error. The last known specimen died in a zoo in 1936, pacing in silence. Extinction came not from weakness, but from inflexibility. Yet in the shadows of these disappearances, other species thrived, not through dominance, but through versatility. The rat, for instance, evolved not to conquer, but to coexist. It eats almost anything, nests almost anywhere, and breeds with staggering speed. It has infiltrated nearly every human settlement on Earth, from subway tunnels in New York to rice paddies in Southeast Asia. Evolution favored its unremarkable form because it worked, across all environments, all threats, all climates. Where the dodo crumbled under its own simplicity, the rat survives by embracing chaos. Insects have mastered this principle on an even grander scale. Ants, collectively outweighing all birds and mammals combined, have adapted to nearly every terrestrial biome on Earth. From deserts to rainforests, from city sidewalks to Arctic tundra, they modify their behavior to fit the terrain. Some enslave other ant colonies. Others farm aphids like cattle. Some species sacrifice their own bodies to form rafts, living bridges, or barricades. Ants do not survive because they dominate as individuals. They endure because they evolve as collectives, shifting colony roles and behaviors faster than most species reproduce. Then there's the coyote, a carnivore native to North America that has become a symbol of modern adaptability. Once restricted to the Central Plains, it now thrives in urban parks, suburban backyards, and city alleyways. It hunts rodents beneath streetlights, scavenges fast food wrappers, and crosses highways using overpasses and storm drains. Attempts to exterminate coyotes have only spread them wider. Their litters grow larger when populations fall, a reproductive response triggered by stress. Their diets shift depending on availability, and their fear of humans adapts to levels of risk. The coyote doesn't survive despite humanity, it survives with it. Adaptability, however, does not always mean flourishing. It often means tolerating. Bats, for instance, are among nature's most successful mammals, with over 1,400 species filling ecological roles from pollinators to insect hunters. Yet many are now collapsing under the weight of human change. Not because they can't adapt, but because the pace of destruction outstrips their ability to respond. White nose syndrome, a fungal disease introduced to North America, has decimated entire bat populations. Urban expansion has stripped roosting sites and disrupted migratory paths. Some species may pivot, shifting ranges or behaviors. Others may follow the dodo. Humans stand apart, but not outside this equation. Our ability to adapt is unparalleled. We have bent our environment to our will, altered landscapes, controlled fire, language, and gene expression. But this same capacity has placed us on a collision course with our own limits. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and antibiotic resistance are not external threats. They are products of our success. We are adaptable, but not immune. Our survival, like all others, hinges on how quickly we can respond to the challenges we've created. And yet, in the unlikeliest places, evolution continues its silent calculations. In polluted lakes, fish evolve to tolerate toxins. In city centers, birds sing higher to pierce the hum of traffic. In pesticide-laced fields, resistant insects rise. Even in radioactive wastelands like Chernobyl, wildlife has returned. Not unchanged, but different, shaped by pressure rather than plan. Nature is not sentimental. It doesn't protect legacy or status. It strips away the unnecessary, favors the functional, and discards the unfit. Evolution is a slow, blind sculptor, indifferent to beauty or justice. It reshapes life in response to shifting ground, altered skies, and new predators. Species that cannot bend, break, and those that cannot break fast enough, disappear. There is no finish line in evolution, only a test that never ends. Every generation inherits both the adaptations and the vulnerabilities of the last. Every ecosystem hosts experiments in survival, mutations, behaviors, migrations, some of which will vanish without trace, others that may define entire future lineages. So who's next? It won't be the obvious targets. Strength does not guarantee resilience. Speed does not ensure safety. The lion may lose its grasslands, the polar bear may lose its ice. The elephant, despite its wisdom, may be outpaced by the bullets and fences of a changing continent. Meanwhile, the cockroach, the jellyfish, the humble crow, all may persist. Not because they are extraordinary, but because they adjust when others resist. In the end, survival is not a prize awarded to the deserving. It is a consequence of motion, of learning, of changing faster than the world around you collapses. Nature gives no warning, no second chances. It only offers the test and waits to see who passes. And the test is already underway.